And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, December 18th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, we're going to start off by talking about the news that broke last night that the Falcons have made a quarterback change. They have benched Kirk Cousins for rookie Michael Penix Jr. in the final 3 games that we have left in the regular season. The Falcons still, in a position where they can catch up to the Buccaneers if the Buccaneers slip up and still win the division and make the playoffs. So they indeed went and made a quarterback change. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. Then in the second part of the show, we will also talk about some more quarterback stuff. We're going to talk about the Jets. We talked about them yesterday with the Bill Belichick stuff. But we're going to get into discussing Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams and their performance on Sunday against the Jaguars. The Jets finally picked up a win. So I wanted to talk about that and whether or not now the conversation maybe has changed on whether the Jets should bring back Aaron Rodgers if he wants to play. We'll get into that discussion in the second part of the show. Then we're also going to talk about the Dolphins-Texans game. I'll talk to you guys also about the wide receiver Grant Dubose, who got injured in that game as well. Updates on him. Positive updates, which is good news. And then we'll also talk about the Giants and their most latest loss to the Ravens now. Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdown passes in the game. And we'll talk about a conversation that we've had several times is, are Joe Shane and Brian Dable going to be back? And we'll discuss it. We'll talk about that. And then in the final part of the show, I will do my power rankings by ranking the top 5 teams after week 15. And it has changed. The top 5 has changed. Teams have moved around a little bit. So we'll get into that. Because I know the last couple weeks they remain the same. This week there's been a shift in those rankings. So we'll talk about that as well. But let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Falcons and their decision to bench Kirk Cousins for Michael Penix. And based off of Raheem Morris's comments after the game the other night, it seemed like, there was no guarantee that Kirk Cousins was going to be starting this upcoming week. And it was made official last night. Falcons indeed benched Kirk Cousins, and Michael Penix Jr. will be making his first career start on Sunday against the Giants. And this looks bad on the Falcons' part, first of all, because they brought Kirk Cousins in and then they drafted Michael Penix. They gave Kirk Cousins a 4-year contract with $100 million guaranteed. And in the beginning of the season, it looked like, all right, so far so good. Kirk Cousins put together some good performances, although a couple of them came against the Buccaneers, and then, against some other teams he struggled. Like in the beginning of his very first game against the Steelers, he struggled. But, the beginning of the year, he was looking okay. But then things started to go downhill. And especially when you look at the game against the Chargers and this past week against the Raiders, the Falcons, I guess, felt inclined to make a move. Because the Chargers game, he threw 4 interceptions. And some of them, were just, the one he threw up into the end zone, and, the Chargers player came down with it. Again, I brought up jackpot. It was like that. He was just throwing it up to see, and whoever caught it, won the jackpot. And then the pick six, that was kind of a lob. There was no force on that throw. And then you look at what happened the other night. Yeah, the Falcons won, but they ran the ball 37 times. He threw a touchdown pass finally, but he also threw an interception. And there's people talking about the confidence level with Kirk Cousins. Is he a guy that just has lost confidence? And it's possible. He's coming off of a major injury. It's definitely a combination of different things. A new team. It's a combination of things, I believe. But I don't know. And then you see how, and we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers in the next segment. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is older than him. And look at Aaron Rodgers, these past couple of games. It's interesting to see that. So I think whether it's the injury or if it's confidence, I mean, I guess maybe it is confidence. I mean, Kirk Cousins now in his last, I think, 4 games has 1 touchdown pass to 9 interceptions. Yeah, I mean that's going to affect you mentally. And the Falcons right now, they're saying, look, we still got a chance at this thing. We got to make a change. And they're hoping that Michael Penix can provide the spark for the offense and get them going. So maybe they can win these final 3 games here, and maybe the Buccaneers slip up and they're able to get into the playoffs with their rookie quarterback. Now, these final 3 games, you got the Giants, you got the Panthers, and then in between that, you got the Commanders. The Commanders is the toughest game left on the schedule. But I think even with Michael Penix Jr., it could be a close game on Sunday, but I do think the Falcons should still win. And the Panthers game could be a little dicey because, they've played better as of late, although Sunday against the Cowboys was not good. So, you win those games. The toughest game left is the Commanders game, which actually that game got flexed into Sunday night. So that's going to be a primetime game. So, we're going to get a good look at Michael Penix. And we'll see if he rises to the occasion. But with the Falcons, though, back to what I was saying in the beginning, this contract does not look good. And the Falcons got blasted for how they handled the quarterback situation before the year started. You sign Kirk Cousins to that big contract, and then you go and you draft your future. I mean, it kind of looks bad right now. They should have went one way or the other. Now, you got Michael Penix on the roster at least, so I guess in a way it's good because if you sign Kirk Cousins and then you didn't draft a quarterback, well, then you're kind of just stuck with what you got and you can't really make a change. They could at least make a change here by putting him in, but now looking back, then you probably should have just drafted a quarterback. You should have just drafted him. I mean, look at how this rookie draft class has performed so far. It's going to be one of the better rookie draft classes. And, maybe if Michael Penix started from week 1 and you just never went to Kirk Cousins, who knows? Maybe he does play well. And the Falcons are, still in a good position. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's hypothetical. But that was probably Kirk Cousins' last game as a Falcon. Now, I still think he's got some gas left in the tank. I mean, he threw for 500 yards in a game. He's still got something left. It's just, coming off of the injury, maybe this just wasn't a good fit for him. And there's going to be a team out there that's going to need a quarterback. There's always teams out there that need quarterbacks. And there will definitely be a team that takes a chance on him. So, yeah, it didn't work out. But there's a team that will bring him in. The contract is the big thing. Because somebody has to take it. Unless, there's a Russell Wilson situation where the Steelers have him on the veterans minimum and the Falcons and the Broncos are paying most of his salary. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, definitely a little surprising. But like I said, based off of what Raheem Morris said in his press conference, it wasn't a guarantee that Kirk Cousins was going to start, and he's not going to. So I'm curious to see how Michael Penix does. He has played a little bit during the year, but very little, in mop up time. He did play a little bit against the Broncos when the Falcons got blown out. There was another game he came in. I forget off the top of my head what game it was. Might have been the Seahawks game. But yeah, no, this is what we got going into Sunday, and this is a winnable game for them. The Giants are one of the worst teams in football, and we'll talk about them later in the show, if not the worst team in football. So I would say this is, in terms of the opponent, it's the right time, but in terms of what's going on with the playoff picture, might be a little bit questionable. But again, Kirk Cousins is not playing good, so you have to make. They felt they had to make a change, and this was their option. So let's see what Michael Penix does. I mean, he got time to sit this year behind Kirk Cousins. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Let me know what you guys think though about this move by the Falcons. Do you think this was the right move? Do you think this is the last time we see Kirk Cousins in a Falcons uniform? I think so, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. So we are going to take our first break rather, and then when we come back, we're going to discuss another quarterback. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. We'll talk about the Jets' win over the Jaguars and kind of revisit this conversation on whether Aaron Rodgers should come back to the Jets next year. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.